Parents cancelled my Sweet 16, banned me from dance and gymnastics because I want to get vaccinated, ignoring my wishes and silencing me. My parents and I were talking about my Sweet 16 plans for the past couple of weeks leading up to what happened, but it wasn't about dance in the beginning. My parents aren't vaccinated and they don't believe in getting flu shots either, and they also didn't believe that COVID was real when it happened. My parents are very religious, and while our church moved to online services in the beginning of last year, they went back to in-person services that were open air within a few weeks, but people didn't seem to socially distance afterwards despite the chairs being separated from other people. Why do I bring that up? Because my parents would bring up my Sweet 16 and how I wouldn't have one if I wanted to get vaccinated despite how many times I told them it was unrelated. But they said they didn't care because it was their money and that they didn't have to do anything for me and throwing me a party because it was a privilege, along with how getting vaccinated wasn't putting our trust in God and how the virus was just a tool that Democrats used against the 45th, and we argued a lot about how my party had nothing to do with their beliefs, but they kept holding it over me until they eventually said I wouldn't have one. But they've been angry with me ever since I voiced my opinion, and them taking me out of dance is the latest thing they've done every so often. They will sit me and my sister down for a talk on a quarterly basis to talk about whatever regarding the family, and I really hate these talks because it's just them telling us their opinions and things like that, along with new rules that they'll sometimes have. However, in their last talk, they talked to me without my sister and told me that my current semester in dance and gymnastics will be my last one, and they pointed to what they taught me about purity as to why mom said that women are supposed to be honorable to God and themselves with their bodies by not showing too much and stuff like that, and in the past, she's been really controlling with what we wear. No shorts or two-piece bathing suits when we go to the beach or pool, but in regards to the conversation, Dad said that he felt led to address dance and gymnastics, and that as I grew nearer to adulthood, I needed to start thinking differently too. And when I asked him what he meant, he said that he felt challenged being in the gym environment in his walk with God, and that he felt God telling him to address it. But I told him that that has nothing to do with me, but he kept pointing to purity and how mom agreed with him too and said it was a big thing for him to address it, but it has nothing to do with me, and they've been treating me like crap ever since I told them that I want to get vaccinated and wear a mask. Something that they've refused to do and still do, and I'm now losing dance right after my party, but they just won't listen to me. I told Dad that mom can drive me or one of my friends, and I even told my grandma about it who talked to them about it, but Dad yelled at me for going behind his back and for being disrespectful by going to his mom, and I just feel like I'm losing more privileges the older I get, and I don't know what to do to make them stop. Is there anything I can do to at least let them have me continue dance, since I can't talk to anyone else because I'll just get yelled at again? Update 1. When I talked to them again, they said that they would help me keep some of my friends if I was respectful and that it's a privilege and that they don't have to drive me. But when they brought up how I was wrong to tell grandma, mom said that we should build each other up as Christians and not the opposite by talking about people, and she said that we're supposed to help each other in their walk. But after they said that, they gave me some other options. Dad said that he wanted me to still play sports and try something else, but that I couldn't do dance or gymnastics or swimming or cheerleading, and mom said the verse about not conforming to the world and that the world tries to tell you to show too much, but we are supposed to be different because of God, and Dad said that he turns away from commercials that are like that too, but I've seen him not turn on many commercials too. When I asked mom what that had to do with me, she said that the uniforms I wore in dance were inappropriate and that I should be thankful that they let me do it at all, but Dad said that's why he doesn't watch Olympic gymnastics either. But I told him again that it has nothing to do with me since our first talk. Dad has not been back to the studio, but he still won't let me continue after classes end. He also doesn't want me talking to grandma either, and mom has not allowed me to go over to her anymore. I haven't told my coach yet, but I plan to before classes end, and I don't think I'm going to tell my friends since I might still be allowed to hang out with them. But if they find out that I told anyone else, mom said I would get punished because they already told me once after talking to grandma, and as someone commented in my first post, a coach might have to tell, and I don't want to get punished after they already said I would. Is there anyone I can tell who doesn't have to tell them but can still help me? My sister does dance too, but they're not making her stop, and I think it's because she's younger, but I hate it so much and how I'm the only one who gets punished. Not that she should, but it's just not fair. I'm going to tell my coach, but I don't want to be punished and I want to ask if there's anyone who doesn't have to tell them, since if I tell my doctor, they may tell my parents because they're paying for it, and I don't know if they have to tell them. Update 2. Since my last update, I talked to my coach, and I also had a chance to think about everything more. Before I get to her, I want to talk about Dad and what I now think of the whole situation. When Dad talked to me, mom said he was doing a big thing, but he hasn't done anything to work on himself, and I want to explain what I mean. When mom took my sister to gym without him, he stayed home and watched TV, and he hasn't seen a therapist or anyone in church about it. He said that no one outside our family should know about it. As part of working on himself, he said that he wouldn't watch Olympic gymnastics/swimming this year, and he wouldn't go to the gym for 2 weeks while he's fasting. But as of right now, he's been back at the gym, which is why I decided to talk to my coach. When Dad first talked to me, I didn't know what challenged meant, but after our follow-up talk about how I can't do sports that require a similar uniform to gymnastics, it made more sense, and I want to explain why. If Dad was feeling challenged by one of my classmates or instructors, he would have let me continue gymnastics and just move to a different gym, but because he didn't want me doing dance or swimming or gymnastics because of the uniforms, I began to think that it was me who challenged him, and that is what I talked to my coach about too. I didn't want to think it was me, and I kept telling myself that it wasn't in my mind, but if it was a friend or a teacher, we'd just switch gyms. But because he didn't want me doing gymnastics or swimming or dance anymore. It wasn't a gym thing, and I didn't want to believe it. He could have had mom drive me permanently if he was feeling challenged and always stay home, but even me getting dressed at home could challenge him, and that made me scared about something else. Given how dad isn't watching Olympic gymnastics/swimming, I began to feel uncomfortable with him having sports pictures of me through the years, and now that his 2 weeks of fasting at home is done, he's back at the same gym watching my sister's practices, and that also made me believe that it had everything to do with me. I hate writing that, and it makes me feel horrible when I think about it at home. I don't want him having pictures if he sees me like that, and I don't want him at the gym for my sister either. And my coach said that she would talk to the head coach about it, and I could barely make it through that practice because I couldn't get it off of my mind. I'm scared that dad gets off to me with old pictures, and grandma also told others in the family about whatever she and dad talked about, and dad's mad at me because now it's a thing in extended family. He's been to one practice since his 2-week fast, and my coach said that she would have a follow-up with me at my next class, but she also told me that she may have to talk to them or authorities after talking to our head coach, and we're going to talk again at our next practice. That's basically it. Dad is upset that the family knows, but he hasn't told me anything about calls or anything else, and I don't think I'll know until I see them for the holidays. I don't know what will happen when I talk to my coach again, but she agreed that dad shouldn't be at the gym, and she said that the head coach might talk to my parents before our follow-up, if they weren't talked to already when dad went to my sister's practice for the first time since his fast. Dad's been really upset with the family stuff, and I wouldn't be surprised if he got talked to by the head coach and didn't tell me yet, but he said that we're going to talk again soon, and I wanted to write this because I'm afraid that I'll lose privileges or maybe my phone, and talking here has been really helpful when I can't talk to grandma or anyone else, and I don't want to lose that. That's why I wrote this now, because I don't know what privileges I'll lose. I should delete this, but I don't want to because I have no one else to really talk to. I thought about showing them, but that'll definitely make things worse. I know I'm probably getting punished, but I want to ask if there's anything I can do before that happens, before we talk again about extended family now knowing, and most definitely when the head coach talks to them too. Is there anything I can do to just let this die down? I don't even care about gymnastics anymore, I just don't feel comfortable around him anymore, and I'm also afraid that the same will happen with my sister if it hasn't happened already. Is there anything I can do or plan to do after we talk and after I get maybe punished? Update 3. When I made my first post about 3 months ago, my Sweet 16 party was one of the main points, but in the aftermath of everything that's happened with gymnastics, I really couldn't care less about it and was rather glad that it didn't happen, given all the extra baggage that came with the party surrounding the vaccine and their religious views on it. However, as of writing this, I am now 16. There was no party, and I honestly don't mind. My mind has been on other things, and I told my parents that I didn't want to celebrate either, since I'd be losing my friends from gymnastics, and as punishment, they wouldn't be allowed to come because I told grandma. However, the main reason why dad wanted to talk to me last time was because grandma told his family what I told her, and now more people knew about it too. Dad said he received calls from other people about it too, and that made him want to talk to me again, since he said that it could ruin his job too. When I made my last post, many people encouraged me to call my grandma and inform her about how I was punished for reaching out to her, and a few even encouraged me to ask her to help me call CPS too. I waited until my parents went to sleep to call her because they have a habit of standing outside my door if they hear me talking on the phone recently, but because of the time that they went to bed when I called her, it was almost midnight and I couldn't get through to her. I called her numerous times, but I just couldn't get through. I didn't feel comfortable calling CPS on my own, and I didn't want to explain it by myself without talking to anyone, but I was able to call my aunt, on my dad's side, and talk to her. I didn't want to have to tell her the entire thing from the beginning, but she said she already knew because grandma had told her, but she didn't know about how I was punished for telling her and that I was scared about our call tomorrow. I also told her how I had to hide that I was talking to her, but when I mentioned CPS and wanting her help to call them, she told me that grandma told dad that she would call CPS if he followed through on removing me from gymnastics, but that she wasn't sure if she actually called them or not. I assumed that that was probably a part of what they were arguing about, but Auntie said that she's not sure if grandma would actually call on him despite wanting to or thinking she could convince him. So, Auntie said that she would call them for me because I didn't want to talk to them, and I was afraid of my parents hearing me and coming down to ask who I was talking to. When my parents talked to me the next day, they talked about grandma and some things I didn't know. Mom said that someone in dad's family messaged one of her relatives who called her about it, so now someone on her side of the family knows too. And despite the issue with me telling grandma already being handled weeks ago, they were upset that more people besides grandma knew and said that it was stressful for them. When I asked if I was going to get punished for it, dad said that I wasn't going to finish the rest of my class, but in regards to my phone, he didn't take it away from me. When I asked him about my friends and when I could see them again, he said that that wasn't important right now and that my sister won't be going back to her classes either, but he didn't say whether or not one of the coaches talked to them or anything, and I don't know as of right now. Mom also said that her parents were pretty upset when they talked to her, but because of the stress, Dad would be taking some time away from work and staying with his brother to work out some things, but he didn't tell me specifics or for how long. Mom said it'd be temporary and that he would still be here some of the time, and she also said that her parents might try to visit her as well, although she told them that she doesn't want them over. However, as of writing this, Dad has been home a little bit here and there, but he's also spent time at his brother's and sometimes overnight, which is why it's been slightly peaceful at times. I'm not sure when CPS called them, but the day after we talked, Mom told me that she received a call from CPS, and Dad thought that I had called or told someone else. I told him that I didn't and that I didn't know who called, but he didn't seem to believe me, although he hasn't bothered me much about it since. However, Mom has been talking on the phone about it at home, and when I was able to talk to my aunt again, she said that she might have been getting advice or something, but since they called, Mom has been upset ever since Dad started going over to his brother's. She'll get on me for small things, and I feel like she's just taking out her frustration on me whenever she can, usually yelling and just not talking to me sometimes. My sister, on the other hand, hasn't talked to me much either since she got pulled out of gym, and I think she's holding it against me that she was removed. She's given me short answers and has avoided me some, and while it's been quieter for a little bit without Dad, Mom said that he'll be coming back soon permanently, and I'm afraid that things will go back to the way they were when he does. After Mom told me about the CPS call, I told my aunt about it, and she suggested calling CPS on my own since my phone wasn't taken away and in case she missed anything. She also said it'd be better to call before a potential visit in case my parents don't let them in or try to tell me not to say anything. I didn't want to call without her, but she was right when she suggested that Mom might not let them in because that is what she did. However, nothing has happened even after I called or they visited, or at least nothing that I'm aware of. I've talked to my aunt about trying to stay with her closer to when Dad returns, but as I'm back in school now, I'm considering talking to a teacher, since I couldn't a few weeks ago when school was out. But I feel like there's a lot they're not telling me, and I don't know if there's anything they can or will actually do, since Dad hasn't done anything besides say a lot of things, and he's never touched me or anything like that. He's also allowing me to do sports, but not the 3 ones that I mentioned, and because he hasn't done anything, I don't know what to do from here. Mom's upset at me, and my sister is upset at me too. My dad is really stressed, and I'm having a hard time focusing on school too. I'm sorry for this being so long, but I just want to ask if it's worth it to call them again, since I'm afraid that because it's all verbal, they won't do anything unless I'm just not aware of them working on it. Update 4. I didn't plan to make any more posts, but something happened recently that's been annoying after I found some peace. It's been a few months, and I talked to a teacher about what happened and she said that she would have to report it as part of her job, but nothing really happened despite my aunt saying that they might call CPS as she did. But besides that, nothing much has happened besides talking to my teacher from time to time as things had quieted down until recently. My younger sister has been allowed to go to her practices after Dad took a 2-week fasting break from attending, along with telling me that I couldn't do it at my age anymore, so that he could work on himself, but not seek therapy at all. He just stayed home and didn't even talk to a church therapist and said he wasn't watching the Olympic gymnastics as fasting, and then in 2 weeks, he was back at the gym again. However, this post is not about that. A few people suggested trying to keep up my skills by practicing at home, and I began to do that after my parents went to bed downstairs in the garage where we have some space, and I'm always downstairs after they go to bed and had been doing this for a few weeks. However, my mom came downstairs randomly and saw me practicing when she went to get laundry from the boiler room. I had headphones on and wasn't bothering anyone, but Mom said I'm not allowed downstairs after she goes to bed, and when I asked her why, she said that I was being disobedient and that when Dad said stop, he meant stop gymnastics entirely and not going behind his back. I told her that I could try to practice in my room although it was a little small, but she made the new rule, and I can't stand it. Even when I go down to get a drink, she'll hear my footsteps on the stairs and get up to come down and tell me to go back up, a few times, and I haven't been able to practice in over a week after finding a way to do it for the past few. We have a mini beam in the garage too. She also told Dad, who yelled at me about it, but I'm at the point of just about being done with gymnastics, again, after the nonsense with the gym. Mom has even put up a camera in the living room that goes to her phone after we talked, and that is what made me want to write this. Yes, I could try to practice outside or at a park, but I'm just tired of all of it and want to ask how to deal with the camera. My aunt has talked to my parents a few times, but they got into an argument and they don't want me talking to her. I also told my teacher, who said that she'd report it, but nothing has happened and I'm just tired, and I regret trying to practice in the garage because Mom said that the camera isn't leaving and that I'll get punished if I do anything to it. But she never said anything about not practicing at home until that one night when she made that rule. I'm sorry if I'm posting way too much, but if I can get the camera removed, apologizing didn't work, I'll just lay low. Although Mom pulled that rule out of her behind as if I was supposed to magically guess at update 5. In regards to Mom's cameras, she still has them up, and I haven't practiced gymnastics in months. I'm honestly done with it and don't know if I'll return. I also wanted to get a job last summer, but they said I didn't deserve it with how I was acting, and by that I mean asking Dad to keep explaining why I couldn't do gymnastics along with trying to practice skills at home. Only for him to make up some nonsense about how I wasn't allowed to do that too after Mom caught me practicing in the garage and told him. I hope to work this summer, and it's been a few months since then. I'm not getting my hopes up, but I hope I can. The reason I'm posting today is because of a conversation we had surrounding college, and they wanted to talk to me. They said they wouldn't consider letting me go unless I showed respect, and they also talked about the gymnastics thing again when they said they didn't want me doing it in college. I talked about college a little in my previous posts, but they flip-flop on you're not going and will think about it depending on their mood/my behavior and trying to hold it over me. Dad said he wanted to explain his fasting again because it had something to do with college gymnastics. As of right now, my sister is still in gym, and he pointed to the scripture about how we're supposed to be in the world but not of the world, John 17:11, 14:15, to explain why he returned to the gym after fasting. He said that God put us in a world with temptation because it allowed God to show his power through us and give us testimonies, and he said that his struggle was a testimony too. But it makes no sense because he punished me for venting to Annie way back and didn't want anyone else to know. What's a testimony that you don't tell people? That's why he fasted and went back to the gym that was making him stumble, and he said that fasting attending for 2 weeks gave him new strategies for when he returned, but he didn't say what they were when I asked. When I asked why he had to go back at all, he said it was because my sister was younger and that she'd also find a new sport as she grew older and her body began to change. Mom said that the uniforms became more inappropriate for girls as they grew, but that they were also inappropriate when they were younger and making Dad stumble currently. It makes no sense, and they're talking from both sides. I want to go to college and I'm considering sucking up to do so, and they've been back and forth about letting me go and flip-flop a lot. But part of me thinks it might be better to just focus on moving out as some suggested without college as soon as possible. If I do college with their money, they'll be super controlling about it. Heck, they're trying to control me not doing gymnastics in college already, but I just threw that out there because it's not likely when I'll be rusty of over 2 years of not practicing until I turn 18, so it's not realistic that I'd be in any shape to make a team. But that's where I'm at, just trying to focus on moving out, but I do get depressed over having to give up gymnastics for nothing I did wrong, and I want to talk to someone about it one day like a professional outside of school. It just might be a while until I turn 18 and longer if I don't have a job before then, but talking to many who reached out here has really helped mentally, and I wanted to say thanks for that. I'm also open to any suggestions on my plans or anything else I said from an outside perspective. 2 Update 6. I keep getting told that I haven't called CPS enough, so I want to clarify how many times I've called. I was 15 when I made my first post, and I was advised to tell a teacher about Dad. I've talked to this teacher a lot since then, and she called when I was 15. My aunt also called CPS when I was 15-ish, and I was advised to call myself. I called at 15 and 16 numerous times, and my aunt has too. I think we probably called CPS about 7 or 8 times between me, my aunt, and my teacher, and nothing has happened because Dad never touched me, and people have explained that he hasn't technically done anything illegal either. I also told everything I mentioned in my posts, and I believe it'll help with keeping a paper trail in case he escalates as others have advised. But to answer another question, I'll turn 18 in the summer. I hope to work my first job then, but my parents have refused to give me the papers I need to work because there's no need whenever I ask. However, they said that they would at 18, but I don't believe them. I've been told that I can get my own papers, maybe before 18, but they're really strict on when I leave the home, and they have tracking on my phone along with other parental controls. I've been punished for trying to get around them before, not hitting, but loss of privileges / taking my phone, so I try to be careful. They said my parental controls would leave at 18. But, again, I don't believe them and plan to get my own phone upon getting a job. I doubt I'll have enough to move out with my first part-time job, or 2, and I asked my aunt if I could stay with her before. She wasn't able to before I was 18, and some people said it's because I'm a minor and have no grounds for emancipation because Dad hasn't done anything illegal. If CPS was going to help, it would have been when I was 15 and called. As I'm turning 18 soon, I understand I'm no longer a priority age. I can only talk to my aunt outside my home, which is really limiting. My parents have a habit of trying to listen if they hear me talking on the phone at home, and that's not considering the other rooms that have cameras recording too. I talk to my sister because I feel like I'm running out of time to make a connection with her. Ever since I was taken out of gymnastics / punished, she's been distant, and my parents protect her a lot. I only talk to her when they aren't around / busy because there's cameras in other rooms, but she still doesn't tell me much. Dad originally told her that she would be taken out of gymnastics, but he recently changed his stance. He said she'll be allowed to continue gymnastics thanks to his new strategies, after fasting attending the gym for 2 weeks, that allow him to be at the gym. But when I asked why I couldn't go back, he said it was best if I moved on. But when I asked if he'd be challenged if he had a son who did gymnastics, he pointed to how I'm not allowed to watch male gymnastics either, during the Olympics, because only horny 12-year-old girls watch it, and it wasn't good to look at. But when I asked why he had to go specifically, he said it was like Jesus when he went into the desert to be tempted by Satan to test his faith, Matthew 4:1-11, and he said that the gym was his desert to overcome. He emphasized that Jesus went into the desert to make a point. He also said that Jesus didn't run away from the desert, but stayed there to set an example for Christians on how to overcome temptation, and that was why he had to go to the gym. He also referred to the scripture about be in the world, but not of the world when explaining why it was wrong to run from his challenge because God uses people's weakness to glorify him. But when I asked why I couldn't go back if he had overcome his temptation, He said it was because I needed to move on, which contradicts everything he said. He also said he didn't want to hear me complain about being removed anymore. I want to make the last part of this about my sister. I mentioned she's been distant in recent posts, and she's been distant towards me for a long time. They don't want me talking to her, and they get upset if they see me alone with her, whether that's eating downstairs or anything. The most recent time I talked to her was last week, and that was because Dad wasn't home and Mom was busy doing something else. Dad has weeknight church meetings/Bible study. I asked how she felt about Dad letting her continue gymnastics, and she said she was happy to continue. But when I asked if she wanted to open up about what he said, she didn't want to, so I didn't push her. I asked if I could tell her about what he told me, and she said it was fine, so I told her about the desert comparison. When I asked if he gave her that comparison, she said he didn't, but when I asked if everything else was alright, she only said that Dad sometimes asked her some weird things. But when I asked what they were, she wouldn't tell me. I asked if he ever did anything to make her uncomfortable, but she said he didn't and didn't give me specifics. I don't know what weird things she referred to, and I don't know if she'll tell me. I want to be able to help her, but she didn't tell me much in regards to specifics. I've honestly been troubled about what weird things he could be asking/telling her, but I don't know the right time/way to approach it. My fear is that he could try to take advantage of her because she's younger, but I have no proof of that. That's only main fear, and he's never touched me before. I won't be able to move out the day I turn 18 or probably soon after because I haven't heard back from jobs I've applied to, and I've tried applying for lots. I have no work experience because they wouldn't let me work, and I'm still trying to get the papers my parents won't give me. I'll take whatever work I can get, and if it's 2 part-time jobs to get close to 40 hours, I'll do it. I want to help her while I'm still here because it'll probably be harder once I move out. However, I'm worried about pressing her too much when she barely talks to me as is. I want to ask for advice on how to help her if I can at all. She has so many more years to deal with him, but I can't help but feel worried about whatever weird things he's asking. I don't know if she'll tell me or if I should pry, so I want to ask for advice.